Matt has a master's degree in geology and planetary sciences. He's served as an astronomy ranger at the Mount Rainier National Park, and he has an image on a U.S. stamp. I don't think anyone else here can say that, but this guy has his image on a stamp. Matt offers workshops and also online tutorials at his website at mattdieterich.com. And I'm done talking because I want to watch this. So here's Matt.
All right. Okay. All right, guys. Well, happy to be here and excited that all of y'all made it down to Kanab. So a little bit about my talk. So quick summary. Basically, what I want to do, and I think it's probably the international park ranger in me, the goal is to inspire you guys to get outside and enjoy the night sky. I think most of us already have that bug inside of us, so we probably don't need tons of inspiration as it is. But I also want to share a few, at least practical tips about some of the camera settings that I find practical for some of the shooting that I like to do. And maybe that'll help you guys as well for shooting in the field. It might help y'all out with shooting your nightscapes. And of course, what's a presentation about nightscape imaging without some nightscapes? I'll wrap that up throughout the presentation with just some shots from different national parks. So I think one of the fun things about everyone's journey in astrophotography is it's a little bit different, but I wonder if there's always a common ground of us trying to find an interest in astronomy as a kid. And for me, that's kind of where I found my interest in astrophotography. And I joke saying that false advertising really got me in the hobby because when I was in 9th grade, I got a telescope in a box for Christmas, and it showed this beautiful photo of a nebula, and that's what I thought I was going to see through the telescope. Little did I know that the human eye cannot see color, and that was a camera that took those images back in the day. So, 15 years later, I learned those tips and tricks over the years, but I really wanted to show folks the night sky and kind of what I was experiencing just from that human perspective of connecting to the night sky. I think that's one of the most powerful things that we can experience as humans in connecting to what our ancestors saw in the night sky. So, didn't go the normal route with probably most nightscapers, but I started with connecting a film camera to a telescope. This one wasn't a film camera, but this was one of my first deep sky astrophotographs. And of course, nowadays, you're looking back, it was absolutely horrible. I wasn't polar aligned, there's field rotation, but just to see a deep sky object in a camera from a dark sky location from Cherry Springs in Pennsylvania, I was blown away. So that experience, I was hooked, but I love saving this first photo, realizing, keep those photos and realize how far you come as photographers to look back on your images. So I think I'll hopefully show that to my kids one day, showing that about before we could do this stuff with cell phones, maybe 5-10 years from now. So I really started to realize over the years that dark skies are key. It's common sense nowadays, but back then I didn't realize that. I lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, growing up in the suburbs. I thought that's probably what the night skies are all over the place. But I realized capturing as much light as possible is huge, with the telescope. And then also integrating the exposures, numerous photos for like 3 hours long. So we all kind of have those experiences of learning some aha moments in the hobby of astrophotography, and for me, that year kind of really did it, and I started to capture a little bit more deep sky data, again, just from the suburbs of Pittsburgh with a small telescope, relatively portable, and I was pretty proud of that one because it was that threshold of shooting about 3 hours of images and stacking them. I know most of us might get into using the tracker mounts nowadays that are portable, and that's the stacking realm of integrating long photos to bring out faint detail in the night sky. And another one the next year, same thing, kind of a dark sky location in West Virginia, Spruce Knob. It's an amazing location and experience to just see the night skies down there in photographs. So just kind of building upon that. And then flash forward to this year, just a few weeks ago. So photographing the southern pinwheel galaxy with a telescope we installed down in Chile, not too far from where Yuri was shooting. During my daytime, I work for Planewave Instruments, and we build telescopes up to 1 meter class. So we installed a 0.6 meter, which is a 24-inch telescope, set that up. But dark skies are key, and being under those kind of locations and taking numerous photos, you can photograph objects, like this one, another galaxy that is outside our own galaxy. So like I said, not the most normal route for nightscape imaging, but the premise of being under a night sky to experience these kind of objects, and with a telescope, you can really start to see some kind of scary things in the night sky that our human eyes just cannot perceive. You know, jumping back to 2012, you know, it kind of gets boring just setting up a telescope by yourself underneath the night sky and not sharing that with anyone else. So what I realized was this is a location from Spruce Knob. I really wanted to show people what I was doing down there. I drive 5 hours from Pittsburgh, and I want to show them what I was experiencing in the night sky. So that's where the nightscape imaging came in. That's where I wanted to build a portfolio and show people this is what you could see without city lights. I mean, that emotion and connection to the night sky is so powerful. I mean, it changed my life, and it took my career in a totally different direction from where I thought it would have gone. So, I put, a little tracker and had a tiny little sliver. It's tough to see, but a sliver of tilted foreground. It were kind of some of my first nightscapes from West Virginia. And a few years after that, kind of same thing, that same location, just connecting to the night sky down there in West Virginia. I wanted more people to get really involved in what we were seeing and experiencing, and so I started to do, put myself in the frame, and of course looking back, you kind of ebb and flow as artists, but doing the panorama technique, because we have that Milky Way arcing across the night sky, and I think that's pretty powerful to connect in just a whole panorama like Yuri was showing, and that was just a vertical panorama with a 14 millimeter lens of the Milky Way arcing across the sky. So, flash forward a few more years, I really wanted to experience the dark night skies out west. And, the national parks as a whole, so many of them protect the night skies because, well, they're relatively, islands of protected resources. So I kind of set out on a road trip to go work at Mount Rainier, and I visited a few national parks along the way, kind of just fulfilling a dream of photographing the night sky from these locations where, you see them in Nat Geo magazines or different books growing up as a kid, but finally to kind of pursue something that I really wanted to do that was outside of school it was kind of an aha moment that I really look back realizing that it set me off on just, I guess kind of the path I am now. But in general, what I've learned, from the national parks, and so many of you probably visiting these remote locations, that the national parks, are here to protect the resources and pass them on for future generations and to inspire other people to get out and experience them. I mean, I wish every single person can get to a national park, and I know that there's barriers to entries. I mean, you have entrance fees, you have the locations, the travel, the costs associated, that we're so privileged to be able to go travel and do these things that not everyone can. So we can show them what these locations are like through our photographs. And I think that's very powerful. All of you guys here, you're kind of continuing that legacy and that tradition of inspiring people. And of course, looking at that image showing the light pollution, many of us have probably seen that. It's likely, hopefully, going to improve, but it might continue to kind of degrade the night sky over the years with LED lighting and that sort of thing. But out west, you find these big pockets of good dark skies because there's so many areas of vast wilderness that are kind of inhabitable for the most part, and they're islands. So when we go out to these kind of locations, how do we prepare ourselves? I mean, all of us have different routes for, preparing. For me, whether it's, just the other night waking up at 2 in the morning or something at Zion or in Bryce Canyon. These days I do not want to wake up and go shoot. I'd rather just, stay up late and do stuff. I'm not a morning person, but knowing that you're going to get up and photograph a night sky, it's that gets you out of bed feeling you're about to see an epic night sky. I think that's crazy powerful. So with planning, national parks as a whole, a lot of them out west, of course, have very good dark skies. But what can we do to try to help plan and experience good dark skies? Well, number one, you can obviously visit the National Park Service website. You can check out the International Dark Sky site, who, they're doing a lot of the retrofitting in these national parks to help preserve the night skies and keep communities with little light pollution so we can enjoy the resource for years to come. So those are a few websites you can check out. Dark Site Finder is awesome. It's GPS. It's got the overlays for the light pollution, so you can find locations anywhere. Anywhere on the planet. I've even used that for when I was in Australia one time. You could kind of see how far do I need to get outside of Perth, to go photograph the night sky. Getting into something a little bit more practical, showing you guys a little bit about some camera equipment. Like I said, I know all of you guys probably have so many amazing skills that I could be learning from you guys, and it's an honor just to kind of talk about this stuff. But wide angle lens are always great if you're there to just share the experience behind the night sky. 14 millimeter, 24 millimeter, and do even more unique stuff with a 50 millimeter lens. You can get these really zoomed in perspectives of the Milky Way and give that forced perspective of the Milky Way rising over, say, a horizon or an object that you want. Of course, you want that shutter release cable. You want to have, your 10 essentials. If you're hiking far, realize that you're in an environment that you're probably not close to just being able to grab some water. So make sure you bring a headlamp, warm clothing, a snack, something like that, so you can take care of yourself. And of course, let people know if you're going out hiking somewhere where there might not be cell service, and let them know when you're going to be back. Just some of these things that, in case you get yourself in an emergency situation, you have some 10 essentials to kind of take care of yourself if need be. For some of those wide angle shots, a lot of times I'm doing just 30-second photos. With a 24 millimeter, you can kind of push it to maybe 15 seconds, 20 seconds. You start to get some trailing, and it really depends on that megapixel count on your sensor. But I kind of aim for that, 15-second shot. And if you're doing a 50 millimeter lens, obviously you're limited even to shorter exposures just because it's more magnified on the night sky. But I've realized that I'm started shooting with a Sony a7S III now, and I don't even need to use an ISO 6400 now. I can drop that thing to ISO 1600 and have the most amazing dynamic range and colors in the stars, just because the pixels on that 12 megapixel full frame sensor are so huge, it soaks up so much light. So, but 6400 is such a great starting point, but remember, higher ISO means less dynamic range, which means less color. So if you can reduce the ISO, you're going to be able to record more color in the sky. Now you have your gear, you have your stuff set up, you're in a national park exploring around, you want to visualize and plan your shoot. So like Yuri was saying, PhotoPills and Stellarium, they're such great softwares for timing your exposures and getting to these locations at the right time. And at least that way you're not rushing. That's kind of one of the worst feelings, to setting up and rushing to make, whether it's a sunrise or sunset shot. But with these two apps, you can set your time, your location, your equipment, and kind of do some cool things, especially with Stellarium. So taking your time to plan and to shoot for your scouting will really help make sure that your scene is kind of what you're trying to capture. And of course, scouting during the daytime, this is one of the most cool things about national parks. You can drive around and, get your park map, maybe use PhotoPills, which I just did the other day in this slide of, okay, I want to get it down at this Navajo Loop Trail. Where can I get the Milky Way? Okay, I know I need to be down there at about this time. So using your daylight to get there and scout early, make some notes, write down where you want to shoot, and then go back and experience that Milky Way there or that night sky and capture the scene as you would like. So, when you have a little bit of time to plan, well, you can think about how do you want to actually convey your scene to your audience? What do you want to shoot? Do you want to do a single frame, with a foreground, or do you want to do a panorama to capture a wider field of view of that night sky and really showcase just the scale and the grandeur? And sometimes you really need it. So these were some of the first shots from that trip back in the day. Badlands, again, with that crazy air glow. And this is the first time I ever saw it. It's, shooting with a Nikon D750 at the time. This was just a 14 millimeter lens. The top one was just 30 seconds, ISO 6400. Bottom one was just a vertical panorama, with that same Nikon D750, 14 to 24 millimeter lens, and I would do 30-second photos, move it, make sure you overlap, and the key too is keeping it nice and level. Level that, on Nikon and all these cameras, you have that little accelerometer or whatever it's called to kind of see your vertical horizon if you're keeping your camera level. So, if you easily can rotate your camera, overlap, and keep the camera level. In this scenario, looking back, this was one of my, first panoramas back. This is 2015. Looking back now, okay, I could have maybe gotten to a lower position to get a better foreground, with those Badlands, those beautiful sedimentary rocks. But of course, that's the joy of growing and learning as a photographer, looking back on previous images. Okay, maybe you don't even want to do a single shot or a panorama. Maybe you want to just set up a camera and shoot a time lapse. How many of you guys have shot time lapses before and turned them into videos? I mean, I think it's one of the coolest things. In 2015, I guess I should call it the year of being lazy, because when I was at Rainier, I just set up multiple tripods and let it shoot Milky Way time lapses, because then I could lay down on the ground and just stargaze and watch the Milky Way, because they're hands off for the most part. You know, static tripod, that's the huge cool thing. If that tripod is stationary, you can kill multiple birds with one stone, because you can turn that data into a time-lapse video, or you can turn it into a star trails image, because that foreground stayed the same. So I think that's a cool thing to remember. Do you want to show rotation? Do you want a video? You know, carrying multiple cameras definitely helps at the same time to do this kind of work too. So I know a lot of this is probably overwhelming, and like I said, so many of you are so talented as it is. I don't need to be preaching to the choir, but if you ever have questions or need tips and tricks about editing these kind of, especially panoramas, feel free to shoot me a message or go check out my YouTube channel. I've put up a few tutorials related to panoramas, and I even have some ones that have download links to data files, so you could do that kind of editing. But you know, I'm here to help, and I definitely want to answer any questions that you guys have. You know, but you know, for now, I think kind of a good maybe stopping ground between presentations to answer any questions that you guys might have. But you know, I appreciate you guys being here, and if there's anything I can answer, you know, thus far, I'd be happy to help.
Test, 1, 2. Okay. I'll bring you a microphone so you can ask the questions.
Oh, hey, I was just going to ask you real quick. Spruce Knob, is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
In West Virginia?
Yep.
Where at?
So let's see. Do you know the town of Elkins?
Yeah.
Or Seneca Rocks?
Yeah, that's up in the Panhandle, right?
Yeah, so you go south 79, then you go east on 33, right? And you run all the way into Seneca Rocks. That
Okay, I
little
know
beautiful
exactly, yeah.
Seneca Rocks, you go literally, there's that general store, and you just go south. And then, I don't know, it's like 45 minutes from there.
And that's a dark sky.
Oh, incredible. Incredibly dark sky. You can go to like Spruce Knob Lake.
Sure.
That's one near there. You can get Milky Way arcing over it. That's
Cool.
a phenomenal spot.
Thanks. Thanks.
The parks are so big. Are there resources, or how good are the rangers or the staff on pointing out selections or giving people tips on where to go? Or how would you suggest contacting a certain park and trying to get information on locations within a park?
Sure. So, no, that's a great question. So in general, about trying to find like scouting locations, no, that's, if you're there, I guess, number one, you can ask the rangers at the station. I mean, they live there, right? So they're so keen to knowing the hot spots that are great for night sky photography, or in general, just a visit. So if you ask them, or even using like Google Maps and those sort of resources online to maybe plan and scout certain locations, because you know that, you know, this time of year, the Milky Way core, if you want to do Milky Way photography, the core is going to be rising, you know, in that southeast and transiting across. So if you can kind of find areas that face that direction, you could use Google Maps or Google Earth too, and get those low perspectives to see, and then stellarium, you know, photo pills. But if you're there in a park, definitely ask a ranger for like insider tips, because they're happy to help, you know, to provide tips on locations.
Anyone else?
Hi, thank you for that presentation.
No, thank you.
So for those of us that are just getting into astrophotography, especially around the national parks, is there any suggestions on any behaviors that you would have us avoid or adopt so that we don't become one of those nuisance groups that...
Oh, no, I understand. I know what you mean. I think in general, one of the amazing things is they joke about half the park is after dark, but I have found a fraction the amount of people, and you'll probably experience the same, that most people are inside sleeping. You know, you'll run across maybe a few photographers at night. I think it's easy, especially when you're tired and exhausted, like I'll get snippy or something like that. Like if you remember that the parks as a whole are all of our resources, and to remember that there's other people shooting of, you know, you're mentioning not to be a nuisance of maybe your headlamp. Number one, red headlamps, and try to keep them keep them on maybe only when you need them, so you don't affect if someone else is shooting. Just the cognizance of knowing that someone else is there shooting, I think that's key. And just be out there and experience it, you know, that's huge.
I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts, kind of to piggyback off of this, but what do you think about parks establishing not maybe not rules, but guidelines for controlling the crowds that are showing up in a lot of these places? I mean, we had the conference a couple years ago in Moab, and we're teaching workshops in arches and Canyonlands, and you basically can't go to some locations because you're just shoulder to shoulder with so many people, and it's a real challenge to do astrophotography with that. Yeah,
it is, and I think that's a challenge that we can put on ourselves as photographers to try to shoot something outside the box. You know, when I went to Arches the one night, I kind of experienced the same thing, 6 years ago, that there was tons of people playing music, shining lights. Challenge yourself maybe to go to a different location and capture something more unique, because then hopefully you might find that there's less people in that area. Because that's the thing, the parks are open all night and you're going to encounter other people, but significantly less visitation at night. So, you know, I would just say challenge yourself to go do something, maybe not that Mesa arch or delicate arch, and photograph something a little bit different to create a compelling photo still. Well, cool.
There's a question on the virtual people from Mohib. Hey Matt, really good presentation. If we're doing a track stack panorama, do we level our camera after every stack or every shot?
Oh, a track stack panorama. So I'm trying to think if I have any in this presentation. I think I do later. If you're shooting with a tracker, leveling it, I guess if he's shooting a foreground, if he's doing a nightscape, obviously that's important because that tracker is rotating at the speed the Earth is turning, right? So if he relevels, that's what I would do. I just did one in New Mexico. So releveling is important. If you're using a wide angle lens, it's going to be less noticeable. But if it's a nightscape, absolutely, I think it's helpful to level it, and I'll make it easier to process at night, or process when you're editing the data. Cool. Well, I think we'll continue on to the second presentation. Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Going back to the question about the park staff, I was over at Zion and I was asking one of the park rangers, and he actually pointed out the parking lot by where they park the shuttle buses has this incredible view of the Watchman, and the Corps comes up right next to it. I mean, it was one of the most incredible shots I've ever gotten, and I would have never thought about that shot unless I asked about it. So they really know, the place, and they know where people have gotten good shots. Yeah. Use them as resources. I mean, the rangers and the park staff are there to help, and they're just as passionate as all of us. I mean, that's their living. We joked back in the day in the Park Service, they get paid in sunsets. I mean, it's they do it because they're passionate and they're there to help us. So use them as resources, absolutely. All right, well, let's continue on. So now let's actually just jump in. So this is kind of going back to that trip in 2015 that finally pursuing something that I really wanted to do. Grad school was done. I didn't have to study and worry about that kind of stuff anymore. And I wanted to visit the national parks. So Badlands was the first one to visit. We would go across and try to just hit up these parks based on clear skies. And I spent about a week driving across country. But Badlands, beautiful dark skies. You still have some light domes like many of these national parks, but beautiful. I didn't encounter any photographers at night. I was the only one roaming around, and it's kind of cool. You'll hear like the coyotes howling at night, that sort of thing. You're out there by yourself. That's kind of my church, if you will, is being out under those kind of resources. It's just a spiritual experience. And Badlands, great place for night sky viewing, and you'll even sometimes get lucky on that far left. There's a little bit of northern lights activity that night amongst that red or amongst that green air glow, which is pretty wild. And you just a buddy at Spruce Knob always said, Matt, you just got to be here. You never know, especially in the Appalachian Mountains. You just got to be there in those kind of locations and in photographing the night sky. But going back to that example that we talked about, had that high school, whatever, counselors say, if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. And with this kind of scenario, scouting at sunset, sure, it's easy to stay up for sunset as an astrophotographer. Take those locations and use them to your advantage of scouting and kind of using those apps, especially photo pills. All you have to do is use the night AR mode and kind of go to those locations. And back then, photo pills wasn't around yet. So I just had to use general astronomy knowledge of knowing the cardinal directions of where the Milky Way is going to rise that night. And of course, it becomes a pattern. This kind of stuff starts to become ingrained in you as you see the night sky move across from year to year. So go there, find a location, and that's kind of one of these scenes, that little ledge there for sunset, but then coming back at night, totally different perspective. So it's pretty cool to kind of get a little bit of night skies with landscapes as well. So take your time, plan, experience the park during the daytime, and then come back and shoot. Again, I think I already showed you guys this one, but just a panorama, just a vertical one. Oh, this one I forgot I pushed farther. So I was doing 50-second shots. Definitely going to get some trailing in that 14-millimeter lens. This was on a static tripod. But just vertical overlap, enough frames. And all I did was I used Photoshop to stitch these ones. And again, there's tutorials that I have on my YouTube showing this whole process for some new data. And I joked about, remember when the flashlights were all the rave, this was back in 2015, seeing a lot of people. I thought, again, this is probably the nuisance thing. Absolutely 100% would be a nuisance. If there's other photographers around, I highly do not recommend doing this because the parks are everyone's, and it could ruin someone's photo if they're doing something, especially a long exposure. But this is an example of what I won't do anymore looking back on 2015. So, but it's still just seeing that Milky Way rising. This was early May. This was right around this time of year. A little bit after midnight, you get that Milky Way rising over the Badlands. A cool time to get a time lapse of it rising, or a zoomed in, like a 50-millimeter lens of the core of the Milky Way on the horizon. You can get some cool shots with that. And then in that neck of the woods, motoring westward, visiting Glacier National Park. How many of you guys have been to Glacier at all? I mean, they call it a poor man's Alaska, and yes, it's true because I have not been to Alaska yet, but all the mountains and everything just so reminiscent of what I've seen photographs of Alaska to be like. But for those of you that have been to Glacier, and if you had clear skies, it's one of the darkest night skies I've ever seen. Going through some of these canyons in the mountains, you could barely see your hand in front of your face even after you're dark adapted. And it's kind of one of the more freakier ones too, because you're going to have grizzly bears, you have wolves. We definitely saw some wolves on the horizon when we were shooting one of the times. There's moose, there's elk. So this is kind of the park that if you want to push your boundaries in your comfort zone, you definitely absolutely can there, especially in big game country. But this one, you don't have to go far. You don't have to get too nervous. I was literally right on a pull-off by my truck. So you don't have to go 5 miles deep in the woods going through grizzly territory to get a photograph at Glacier. So, just trust your instincts and what makes you feel comfortable, but you don't have to go too far in these national parks to get to dark skies if you don't want to. So this was a panorama as well. This was a mosaic. And the way that I like doing my panoramas, a lot of times I do them in portrait mode or landscape mode. And I do them kind of from like starting in Cassiopeia, the far end of the Milky Way, which is kind of the left side of it, which is not fully shown. But I start mine up high. And then, with a 24-millimeter lens, I take one photo, I move it down. Next one, and just keep going, and then I go for the bottom, and then I come up. So I kind of go left to right, and then just go that way, but definitely overlap more than you think you need to, because you'd rather not get home and realize that you have a hole missing in your panorama because you forgot to snap a shot. It's happened before, but 24-millimeter lens is so wide that you're going to easily be able to see kind of a reference star on live view as you rotate, and kind of keep that field of view level on that vertical horizon on your camera. That definitely helps. And again, you might get treated to see some insane air glow. I mean, the transparency in the sky is totally gone when this happens. I mean, you think the seeing is that stability in the air, and the transparency is like, hey, does it look like diamonds on black velvet? When it's green air glow, that kind of brightness, it's kind of hazed out, but then you photograph it and the whole screen is green. I mean, I think it's amazing because it's a phenomenon. It doesn't happen all the time. This one, again, from that same location, it's just facing a different way. And, with our nightscapes, we can do these cool field of view shots. And of course, this was my buddy David Lane, who now moved here to Kanab, who's an incredible astrophotographer. But he's down there at the very thing by these crosses. He set up a panorama back then. This was 2015. But just that scale of this tiny little guy in this panorama against the mountains in that Glacier Lake, it's just spectacular. So Glacier, highly recommended to visit. Blue hour is phenomenal there. You can go check out. This was Two Medicine Lake. So beautiful. I mean, you get that the clear water and all the beautiful colored rocks. Hang out there for blue hour, and then this is when the moon and Venus were rising. Just a quick 10-second shot. Of course, having that on a tripod as well was helpful. Now, went over to work in Mount Rainier, and what we found, of course, was so many people are so passionate about the night skies, and the national parks in general are here to help, educate people and inspire others to experience the night sky. So we would set up, I would do astrophotography and teach them, and the coolest thing was, of course, always having kids. After we were done editing a photo, going up to their mom and dad, because we would Bluetooth the edited deep sky photograph over their phone, and they would stay up late and show their mom and dad their photo, and their mom and dad's freezing in the car, and yet this kid's just hanging out doing the astrophotos with us. Some of the coolest memorable experiences in the national parks are at these events. People seeing the night sky for the first time, 90 years old. It's amazing to be able to share that connection with people. And for me, a lot of my talks in general are about the emotion and connection of our relationship with the night sky. So when I was done working, I would always go roam around and just photograph the night sky. So this was a panorama from Box Canyon. And slowly over the years, this one I just edited, I think last year. My editing style has tried to become a little bit more natural. I don't push things as hard as I used to, but I still like adding that little bit of saturation to bring the air glow up if it's there. In this scene example, for that example itself, just by the road. Again, you don't have to hike 10 miles to get a photograph like these in national parks. Literally, this is on a road, of course, because that's part of the foreground. But just a neat area to photograph the Milky Way over those pines. Now this one was just one of the most crazy nights. I'm pretty sure I cried that night because when I was down at the bottom, I was photographing up the hill and I saw the northern lights, and that was one of the first times to see it that bright. So I literally grabbed my camera gear. Number one, has anyone been to Mount Rainier National Park here? Oh my gosh, awesome. So have you been to Sunrise, the Sunrise side? Okay, so this was Sourdough Ridge Trail, I think. So right at that, this is just above the visitor center at Sunrise, higher elevation, dry. But, getting up there, I mean, just by myself, just the crazy wind, that's the kind of stuff you can experience these locations. You just got to be there. The northern lights just rolling across the horizon to the north. So I set up one camera doing a time-lapse video, and then I had this other one just to do my panorama, because I was like, holy cow, I want to do northern lights all the way to Rainier. And on it, you could even see some of the alpinists starting to climb the mountain as their little headlights. So that one, air glow as well. So that's just a huge panorama. But when I edited these, you can edit them to say like a 1:3 format, because then basically this is a 60-inch long by 20-inch high panorama. So you can make those into like squares, like 30x30 squares when you print them. Say if you want to get your work into a gallery or something like that, think about the format that you want to do when you're cropping, because that's how the images are going to print. And you can get them standardized that way and do like 3 segmented little panels when you're printing them for the wall. So that was a pretty big panorama from that experience. And again, another one of just the northern lights. It doesn't show the color that great, but northern lights over Rainier with some of the light pollution. But then you have the Andromeda Galaxy there, the double cluster that's in the Milky Way, just from Reflection Lake. So again, you're out there by yourself. It's just that connection with nature experience is just beautiful. Just using that D750 and 14 millimeter lens again to capture that wide panorama and capture that whole lake there. Now let's see if this plays. I don't know if I have to click a button, but so this was from that same location. Let's see. So this is the northern lights I shot in one static time lapse, and you can see the climber starting to summit from that left side. If you can see the trail of the headlights, maybe we'll play it again. So this is the data, and I literally did cry this night because it was just one of the most beautiful experiences ever of getting down there. When we were doing a star party up at the hill at Paradise, a guy was asking for questions about how to photograph the night sky. So we just said, okay, hey, aim your camera this way. He wanted Rainier in it. Next, you know, the back of his camera was all pink. It was the Northern Lights. So I was like, okay, when we're done, you know, this guy's photographing the night sky. First time, he just got a photograph of the aurora. So I went down the hill. It's like, whatever, 10-minute drive, set up the tripod, photographing Rainier. And when I got down there, all I saw was this kind of gray column of light to Rainier. I was like, what is that? And it slowly dimmed. But when I photographed it, the whole back of the screen of that Nikon D750 and 24mm lens was pink. So the Northern Lights were just popping, but to my eye, seeing them, that was the first time I saw them, but they were black and white. But it was still, it brought a tear to my eye. And the craziest thing was, you know, I decided with that experience to make my first star trails image, even though my teacher in 10th grade said, Matt, start out astrophotography and take star trails. So I'm glad I kind of waited to do that, because with that connection in National Park Service, they needed a photograph to share the experience of the night skies. So my boss we sent in my footage and that sort of thing, and they said, hey, your stuff's gonna be on a stamp. So with your images, share it with people, guys. You literally do not know the impact that you can have with your photographs if it just sits on your hard drive. They're gonna do nothing. So all I mean by this is to implore you guys to take these photographs, share them, build a little portfolio website, do something, make a little gallery event with a local coffee shop, something to get people to experience these photographs, because you just don't know who you're gonna impact with these kind of photographs and who you can end up meeting down the line. And again, case in point, sunrise, this photograph that summer was just wild, because this was the first time experiencing and emulating, you know, astronomy picture of the day. You know, seeing all these amazing astrophotographers and wanting to grow and be better. I submitted this one, and you know, eventually it was picked for an APOD that summer. So it was just a crazy year of go follow your dreams, because the universe is going to align and help you guys get to where you need to be. I've never gotten an APOD since, but this is a bucket list shot of the Perseid meteor shower, again, just from a time-lapse video. Set up a time-lapse, just a camera clicking away, and next you know, you can have a data over the meteor shower and manually put in the meteors as you have to align each photograph. And that's how they emulate, they look like they radiate from the radiant during that Perseid meteor shower. So, and that's the forest fire smoke from that year, was kind of hazing over the night sky there. Not too far from this location, you guys have probably been here. This is right near where you're talking about, sir. There, just up the road from, I guess, that campground there at one of the entrances. This was back in 2015, but just shooting. Get low to your perspective. Remember, if your goal is to use a wide angle lens, it helps being able to give that forced perspective of low to far. And of course, we really see this in daytime photos, but even night skies. I mean, you could use leading lines, and of course, make sure you do this safely and don't get hit by a car or anything. You definitely don't want that to happen. But again, crazy wind, there was no one else out, but just, you know, be aware of your surroundings, and don't try to, you know, don't kind of forget your location, that sort of thing. Arches National Park, again, this location, I unfortunately had to clone stamp out a lot of people in this shot to get it, and when light painting was still a thing, and this was 2015, when I think that was still allowed back at Arches back then. But you know, you hike up to these locations, it was like 90 degrees still at night. So I still remember hiking with all my gear pouring in sweat, but with other people that were going up there just to experience the night sky and hang out. So in national parks, yes, there's going to be other people. There's going to be, you know, other folks wanting to enjoy those resources. And of course, the night sky from that location is just wild. A little bit of air glow with some clouds passing overhead with just a big panorama. But, you know, you capture these pretty quickly, that using the panorama technique doesn't blur it too much. Death Valley National Park, a little bit more recent, just a couple years ago. Very dark night sky. You have Vegas light pollution, but again, you can use a panorama technique to photograph and really showcase that whole arcing panorama view. This was from right near Badwater Basin there in Death Valley. Just one of the coolest areas to experience, you know, below sea level there. Now, this was last year, so again, with your stuff, make connections in the national park, because with this national park experience last year, I did an artist in residency. So you guys, every single one of you have the power and the capabilities to do these experiences with the national parks and inspire other people through your images. So you can contact the national parks and find ones that host these artists in residencies and go there. So luckily, and it wasn't even planned, that Comet Neowise, if you guys remember that last year to see that, it just so happened to come into the night sky that week that we were there. And it was amazing because we had 7 nights in a row of clear skies. The air glow there was insane. Just, I don't know what caused it to be that bright those days, but the last night there was absolutely none. Sometimes there's a lot and sometimes there's not. But a tracked exposure here on the left-hand side, this was a pretty cool experience using these little portable trackers now that you guys can set up and just aim and get a view a little bit more crisp using those trackers. That there's probably many talks in this conference about that, about setting those up. And then all sky images. You can really be able to help document light pollution and of course even air glow as well, because that's so cool. Like Yuri was showing, was just those all sky views showing the whole experience of kind of being under a night sky. It's pretty powerful. And as long as you take enough overlapping photos, shoot way more than you need. I mean, this was 36 images. I used what's called an Ioptron Ipano. That makes it so much easier and to capture the night sky automatically. And again, another one, almost an 80 image panorama with the Ipano. It automatically moves my camera at high focal length just so I don't have to do it. That makes it very possible. So I don't accidentally forget like a middle photo to stitch. The girlfriend was very patient with me. She slept many nights in the truck and on cold ground while we were shooting. So I give her mad props for that. And you could do cool things like this with the Milky Way rising or with other celestial objects. In this case, that forced perspective of Comet Neowise in Savannah and I on this horizon. So get that camera far enough away, and I set it for a timer and then ran up this hill and just stand there to be stable for those, 15 seconds for that. But you can get those cool silhouettes with your images. So, last but not least, that right-hand side was a tracked panorama, kind of what that guy was talking about. I think Mohib was his name, for capturing tracked exposures. So in 30 seconds, the ground isn't moving too much if you're doing tracked exposure. So I didn't shut the tracker off and do, static images. I just kind of blended them, even those a little bit of blur. So, but I think in general with just talking to you guys, get your work out there. I mean, I'm connected emotionally to the night sky just like all of you are. So follow your passion with these images and share them with other people. That's what we can do to help mitigate light pollution and inspire kids. You really don't know what power your images have if they're sitting on hard drives. So definitely please get them out there, print them, get them in galleries, do all kind of stuff like that in your community with them. And if you need help editing, anything like that, feel free to shoot me a message. Or if you're looking for, of course, workshops, I lead those as well if you guys are looking for, guided trips to help learn more about imaging. But thank you guys again for everything, and it means a lot to be here with y'all.
So first question we have from a virtual, from John. If you were in a group, wrong one. How much of an issue is weather at Mount Rainier? If you have a couple nights, what's the best time of the year?
So best time of year usually is July. I mean, summer, the wildflowers start coming out. In 2015, we had a very more dry season, but July is usually the best. But you might have forest fire smoke like we did in August that year. You might be clouded out for a week and just doing moody Pacific Northwest shots. But that's the nature of being in these dynamic locations, especially weather-wise at Rainier. But July and August are going to be great for them, most dry portions.
A couple of times you mentioned heavy wind. Mm-hmm. What are you doing to keep your tripod steady?
Surprisingly, on these, I didn't have to do much. I'm using that same tripod that Yuri is using from PhotoPro. I didn't put any weights or anything like that. I kind of stay next to it just so it doesn't blow over, but I've never had one blow over, especially that time at Rainier on that ridge. I mean, it's probably 20, 30 mile an hour gusts. And it's loud enough, obviously, that it's tough to hear what's going on, while you're out there. But I just set your tripod legs as wide as you can, and most of them you can extend them out, to get the angle wider. So a wider base, more stable, and lower to the ground too. But if you want to, you can get weights to help that, get bags and something to do that.
Hi, Matt. First, great talk. Best natural color I've seen so far in this meeting. My
Roger.
question is, when you're going out at night like that, do you carry bear spray or other precautions?
At Rainier, I did. I had bear spray at Rainier. They have black bear, they have cats, that sort of thing. I never ran into them. I had bear in the distance at Rainier. But I would carry, and I think in most national parks, you're allowed to carry a firearm, like a pistol. I did. I never had to use anything like that, but I did in case it was by myself in dire emergency. But bear spray is way more effective. I'm probably not a good shot at a bear at that. I'd rather have bear spray to do that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, great talk.
Thanks, sir.
Eddie from the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, Eddie, how's it going?
Yeah. I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on the artist in residence program. How does that work? What does that, so I want to do maybe something.
Yeah, so in general, the artist in residency programs, if you're a painter, a watercolorist, a photographer, any of these kind of artists to help create work for the national parks, you're there for, I think, usually a couple weeks. I was there for only about a week and a half just due to my schedule. But some of these national parks, the guy that I knew at Rainier became an interpretive ranger there, and he kept trying to get me on to do one there because they're a dark sky certified park, and they really wanted to revamp their night sky imagery that they had. So I finally was able to do it last year, and luckily with COVID, still was able to do it. But there's ones you definitely can apply, but I think that's a key thing, just like with anything in life, network and try to introduce yourself to any rangers that you can and get information from them to help, because I know there's different selection processes that you can go to. Various national parks have them. You can definitely check out nps.gov for some of that info as well. But email me if you have questions and need tips.
Okay, a question about the national parks. And you talked about going deep. You don't have to go deep in the backcountry, but I tend to like, that's my style. So I just want to know, I know some different national parks have different rules. I want to make sure I follow the rules and of course leave no trace. Where's a good resource to find that, just to make sure we're playing by the rules and we're honoring the land, basically?
Yeah, I mean, number one, absolutely nps.gov, because I know regulations seem to be changing, especially say with like Yosemite. I think now you even have to go to recreation.gov, I think, to even get into the park. I don't know if they're doing the ticket to just get in. So I would absolutely, they're going to be the first place to go, nps.gov, for the most recent updates on that sort of thing. And then, of course, maybe calling up one of your national parks as well. Say if you want to go to Mount Rainier and do this, you can call one of the ranger stations and just ask that exact question, because they'll be able to give you, day-by-day updates on, hey, we require a permit for you to do this. Because if you're hiking around and not camping, then maybe your regulation stuff might be different, where you wouldn't need a backcountry camping permit or something like that. But I would check with them first, because I'm definitely not a full-blown resource with the daily stuff that's changing just with this year with them.
I got a comment from Yuri Beletsky, who says, "Great tips, Matt."
Yuri, you're the king. We all learn from you. I appreciate you being here.
I think that's it. So thank you, Matt.
Over there. Yeah.
Oh, one more.
There are hundreds of national parks. Is that
Well, and monuments and land. I think there's 400 and some
any
in total.
Any through the grapevine, anything under the radar that's people aren't appreciating? That
I've absolutely heard Cedar Breaks National Monument. I've heard it's like a mini Bryce. I have not been there yet. I know that's a great one that's local as well. Just phenomenal dark skies and higher elevation than Bryce too. I think they get up to like 10,000 plus. Say for around here, if it's dark skies you're after, yeah. Well, thank you guys very much. I appreciate you guys.